everybody, my name is Allison. I'm the Programs Outreach and Youth Services Manager here at Monterey County Free Libraries. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Self-Care Sunday. Today I'm going to be sharing a tip with you that was recently shared with me by my therapist, and I'm calling it grief boxes. However, as I was discussing with my therapist during my session recently, this analogy could be applied to any type of change in your life that makes you feel like you have some sort of void, or you're missing something, or you're not sure how you're going to continue on normally. So I'll explain more after I show you. This is a visual thing, and so she was recently using it with me when I was talking to her about how I'm starting to move past the loss of my dog, and how I still feel like I miss him the same, but I'm still continuing to move forward with my life. And so she shared this with me. She said that she tells her patients that, let's say this is your grief, or as I'll explain later, some experience that has changed your life. So you can see that, let's say this is the starting point. So this is like when it first happens. So this circle represents the grief, the feeling. And when it first happens to you, your life, which is the box around it, feels like it's completely consumed by the grief. So this is your life, and the grief is taking up a huge portion of your life and your thought process. But then a little bit of time passes, so let's say, maybe 6 months or a couple months passes, and your grief or whatever experiencing you're going through might stay the same size, but the box around it starts to get bigger, and you have room for new memories and new experiences. And so it doesn't take away from the grief that you felt or maybe are still feeling, but your box is a little bit bigger. And then as you move forward, let's say you go, another year or so, even more time, your box gets even bigger. And so your experience might still have the same impact on you, but you might be feeling it less day to day because your box around it, your life is getting bigger. And so, as I was saying, this could be applied to a bunch of different situations. So I could see it really applying to somebody who's newly retired and doesn't know what to do with a lot of their spare time. This was the circle that work occupied, and so it was a huge chunk of your life maybe. But then as time moves on, work was still a big part of your life and who you are, and that doesn't necessarily get smaller, but your experience around it gets bigger. And so it's okay for these things that are big in your life, or, if it's a relationship, whether it's with somebody who's passed, or a breakup, or a friendship that has become distant, it doesn't mean that the experience of that interaction has to get any smaller in your life. Your life around it just gets bigger because you keep moving forward and you keep developing new bonds, new experiences, and new life as you move forward. And I found this really helpful because it made me not feel so bad about having my grief take up the same amount of space, but it made me feel okay that my life is continuing on and my box is getting bigger. I know that for me, sometimes when I'm going through something and people say, oh, well, time will heal that, time will make it feel better, that sometimes gets me a little annoyed, because sometimes time doesn't make it feel better. It's still just as fresh when you spend time thinking about it. But this helps you realize that it's okay if you still feel the same amount of grief over the loss of, in my case, a pet, but your experiences around it are getting bigger, so you're not necessarily thinking about it all the time. So I hope that made sense to everybody. It really hit me and really resonated with me, so I wanted to share it with all of you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you find that helpful, and I will see you next time on a future Self-Care Sunday episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.